seeing this blue moon and super full moon occurring in the intuitive and observant water sign of Pisces. We're seeing a powerful opportunity for accepting what is, releasing expectations, and truly holding space for our inner knowing to come to the surface. And with us entering Virgo season, along with Mercury retrograde starting, this Pisces lunation will definitely be one that reminds us of the power of letting go and holding space for those sparks of magic that often occur during the most unexpected times, like once in a blue moon. Hello friends, it's your girl Alina back for another video, and in this one we'll be diving into this very auspicious and unique blue moon happening on August 30th or 31st depending on your time zone. This will also be a super moon along with it being a full moon, and as always we will get into the meaning of all of these names and what it means for them to all converge at this time as well. We'll talk about what a Piscean full moon specifically looks like, the energy around it, which we will likely be feeling up to 3 to 5 days before, 3 to 5 days after this lunation, along with some of the top trends that's happening right now. Like mentioned before, this Mercury retrograde, a lot of other retrogrades going on all around the same time, Virgo season coming into play, and what that means for us. And as always, at the end, I will offer some custom writing prompts for us to reflect and align with this energy together. But with all of that said, let's dive in. So first up, what exactly is a blue moon? So the phrase blue moon is often given to the second full moon that occurs within a calendar month or sometimes zodiac season, which is relatively rare. Now they usually occur once every 2 to 3 years and are usually known to have amplified effects on us compared to normal full moons, along with offering a stronger level of clarity when it comes to reflecting on the past and looking to the future. Now, blue moons in general can be a powerful time for getting present, finding clarity around anything that you've been wanting to process or setting intentions around. And with this happening, with this full moon being in the sign of Pisces, I think that there's no coincidence there in that this lunation will likely offer us a potent level of clarity around things, a potent ability to really tap into our deeper inner world and how we truly feel about things, really facing things that we might have put away for a little bit. The thing about Pisces as well is that it's at the very end of the zodiac. It's considered the oldest sign and really the wisest sign. And you might notice that with a lot of your Pisces friends, or you might notice it during Pisces season that there's this air of a bit more of maturity. And a lot of the themes around Pisces has to do with observance, with letting go, with reflecting, as one might do at the end of one's life. And so it's kind of interesting to see that not only does this blue moon and can blue moons offer a stronger sense of clarity around things, but we also have it being in a Pisces sign. So especially when it comes to tapping into our inner world, we'll get into this a little bit later, but I'm just excited to talk about it. It's just kind of interesting to see it come together. Another aspect of this lunation is that it will also be a supermoon. Now, a supermoon is a name given to any new or full moon when it's at one of its closest points to the Earth in its elliptical orbit out of the entire year. So astronomically, this results in a slightly larger than usual appearance in the night sky, while astrologically, it's widely believed to intensify the full moon's impact on us. And so again, we have a lot of energy converging all in the same space at the time of this lunation. And I think that there's no coincidence in that. And I really feel like if you're the type of person that has been feeling like maybe you've been going, or you've noticed that you've had sparks of insight or ideas, but you really haven't been able to kind of like break free of your routine, or maybe even our addictions to constantly being entertained and pacified and consuming, and you really feel called to finally sit down and allow your brain to just breathe kind of for a second and tap into a deeper knowing. Oftentimes that can take a bit of practice, a bit of practice around and routine or ritual around creating that silent time. And that's something that I am such a huge advocate of, like in the morning, having morning pages, which is basically when you write 2 full pages in a journal with no intention of what needs to be put down on the paper. It can be anything. It can be incredibly powerful for allowing your mind to really flow. And you can find that after writing 2 pages, you actually want to end up writing 5 more, because it's almost like there's a deeper part of our understanding that's like, oh, you're listening to me now? Okay, now I'm going to talk. This can also show up with meditation as well. And by the way, I know it sounds like I'm going on a tangent, but I really do feel it's relevant, especially with this being a Pisces full moon. And we'll go into the themes of full moons in general, but there are also themes of things coming to the surface in general with any full moon. But with it being in a Pisces sign, there's a huge emphasis on us tapping into our emotions, tapping into our intuitive abilities, tapping into how we connect with one another and anything we might be holding and allowing it to flow like water. So with that said, like I said, with journaling, it can also come up with our meditations. In our Western society, we can often associate intrusive thoughts or things that come up while we're trying to silence our mind. It can be very annoying, understandably. But oftentimes, those are the things that when our brain is silent, it's like, okay, are you ready to process this? And, obviously everybody should process things on their own time when they're comfortable. But I just offer you a slightly different perspective, that perspective that sometimes it's when we are our most silent, and sometimes when we directly ask ourselves, like, why do I feel this way right now? Or where is there stagnation, or what have I been holding on to? Why is this coming about? Is there a deeper reason? Like, ask ourselves, is there a deeper reason? Oftentimes we can get very powerful and potent insights, especially around the time of this blue moon. Now, with all of that said, I feel like we should backtrack a little bit and go back to the foundational understanding of what a full moon is and its astrological impact on our lives. So from the perspective of electional astrology, which is basically when you time out when to do certain things so that they're aligned with complementary or supportive astrological events or transits, the full moon specifically is a monthly auspicious time for us to reflect upon what has and hasn't been working for us and releasing what no longer serves us, along with looking to the future and celebrating how far we've come. Just like we see that the light has fully culminated to its peak in the night sky, the sun's light reflected on the moon, so too can also reflect on our own culminations in life. What have we been working towards, and how can we celebrate how far we've come? And especially when we try to look at things from how can we learn from this, or look at it from a constructive way, there can be so much potent information there. Every single full moon doesn't have to be this time where I need to fix myself and all these things, but it can be a powerful opportunity if you'd like to do that. Now, full moons can also offer us energetic support around expressing ourselves, connecting with others, and tapping into our intuition. Now, this is because the moon strongly impacts our inner world outside of it being in the sign of Pisces. And just as we see that the moon raises the tides, so too can it also raise our emotions and intuitive abilities, oftentimes bringing up what is going on in our inner world to the surface. And this is why you see people doing full moon rituals, where they set aside time to reflect upon their highlights, challenges, and lessons over the previous lunar cycle, 2 weeks, 6 months, or year. They usually focus on themes around whatever sign that the moon is in, so this will be in Pisces, and they'll write out anything that they're ready to release that no longer serves them on their journey. Now hold on, let me grab it. This is why I created the Auralign Astrology Planner, one of the many reasons, but why specifically in this planner there are dedicated full and new moon ritual pages. That way when you do feel called to do some type of full moon reflection, ritual, or journaling, it's all in the same place where you plan out your year, your weeks, and your days. So you can always go back to what were those intentions that I set, and you can align your schedule and your life with those things. Hence, Auralign. Shameless plug. Now, with all of that said, understanding the nature of the full moon, how potent it will be as a blue moon, and how the impact of this lunation can be intensified because it's also a supermoon. And seeing the qualities that are already there of a full moon, that being that it brings things to the surface in the ways that it does, seeing that it will also fall in the water sign of Pisces, we see that a lot of these things are coming together to offer us a very insightfully emotional time, potentially, if we decide to kind of tap into that and listen to the insights that might come from that. Now, this is because Pisces, again, it's this water sign. Water's energy is very slow and steady. When they say be like water, it's not about crashing through something, although water can definitely do that. Oftentimes it's about flowing through it. When our tears run down our eyes, we're allowing it to flow, we're releasing. And so again, going back to the theme of this full moon, I feel like one of the biggest themes is clarity. Clarity. A lot of that, considering that this will be in a Pisces sign, will be through aligning with the Piscean energy of questioning ourselves, of reflecting, of releasing. Now can be a very powerful time for looking at those things. That way, as we step into the second half of this lunar cycle and into the fall season or the spring season, if you're in the southern hemisphere, going into this new phase, we have a lot more clarity. And one more note about Pisces moons is that another way of facing ourselves and reflecting can be through dream journaling and paying attention to anything that our subconscious might be bringing up at this time. So I really think things like prayer, dream journaling, being in nature, especially in Virgo season, really tapping into the energies around us can be very potent at this time. We can be very receptive to the energy around us. All right, next up, in terms of transits, we do see that this Pisces moon will be forming an opposition aspect with the sun, which will be in Virgo, hence Virgo season. So we'll be called to strike a balance between these two energies. Now, this is because, as with all full moons, they all form in opposition with the sun, which is what contributes to there often being this higher level of tension and energy around this time. But it's that very tension that can often be the healthy discomfort that we need, that can really be almost like the fire under our butt to take a step forward and take action. So with this opposition being with the moon, this closest astral body to the earth that impacts our intuition, our inner world, having this tension with the sun, our central star, that impacts our ego, how we present ourselves to the world, and how we distinguish ourselves from others, being in the sign of Virgo, we see that we're being called to strike a balance between the sun's Virgo energy of holding things together, maintaining order, being a bit of a perfectionist sometimes, and the moon's Piscean energy of letting things go, releasing and processing anything from deeper within. So exploring that duality can look like asking yourselves, how do you balance your expectations with holding space for what is? What helps you to let go of things that have been holding you back, or whether that be spiritually, emotionally, physically, or kind of keeping you down into a lower vibration? Now, I personally believe that every vibration there is, every emotion there is, are all necessary and natural parts of being human. And I don't really believe in being like high vibes only, because I feel like Piscean themes are a season and a sign that really exemplifies the power of looking at our shadows and the power of learning from them, and how that can allow us to create paradigm shifts and heal from things. That way we can continue to grow. But that growth wouldn't have happened without, the shadow or the low vibes or more difficult emotion. So I really want to emphasize that. So in terms of transit surrounding this full moon, I first want to acknowledge one of the most notable ones leading up to it, which is that the sun will be entering the sign of Virgo on the 24th, ushering in Virgo season. So I want to say a very special happy birthday to all my Virgo friends. Now, I made notes for my video, but I did not write this part out, so I'm going to go ahead and reference the Auralign Astrology Planner, which you can get for 2024, coming up this fall. So this season brings energetic support within the realms of personal and professional organization, self-reflection, learning, work ethic, and communing with nature. Now, this season can be an optimal time for enjoying the outdoors, maintaining healthy workflow, and embracing progress over perfection. And so considering that this full moon will be happening in the sign of Virgo, I think that that's very potent in that it will offer us very powerful clarity around what it looks like to maintain or explore or create the structure in our lives that we might want, because it's a very grounding earth sign. On the same day that the sun enters the sign of Virgo, we see that Mercury will be entering its retrograde period. Woo! So we now have quite a few planets in retrograde. Most notably will now be Mercury and Venus. So with also Venus retrograde in consideration, and with us being in consideration that we're in Virgo season, while there will be a likelihood of potential mishaps or things coming up relative to a Venus retrograde, which often has to do with our relationships, or Mercury retrograde, which often has to do with our communication skills, miscommunication, things that of the air, so the internet, travel, how we speak to one another, whether that be digitally or in person. Especially with it being Virgo season, there can be a leaning towards wanting things to be just right. But I think that the lesson that we will most likely get from this, and something that will help us to align most with the energy at this time, at least Venus goes direct, which will be on September 3rd, will be to let things be. Let it flow, especially with this Pisces full moon, tapping into the energy of, I'm going to accept what is. I might have sent a typo in that email. You know what? I can just email them right back and let them know that I meant to say this. Oh, that thing didn't go as planned. All right, that's upsetting. Maybe that's a little frustrating, but it is what it is. And so being like water and being observant at this time can be very helpful. Something I always like to remind y'all of is that retrogrades happen about 80% of the year. There is a planet in retrograde, and Mercury retrogrades, I think about 4 times a year. So it's a very common thing. It's very regular part of our lives, and there can be a lot of people that make it seem more like you need to be more fearful. But if we understand the nature of it, it can help us. And so specifically with a Mercury retrograde, as with many retrogrades, the underlying theme is for us to place more intention and observation within the areas of our lives that the retrograde planet impacts. So there can be a higher likelihood for mishaps or transgressions or issues relative to things involving Mercury that it controls. But we can prevent those things from happening. Yes, we can in fact prevent them through bringing more intention, patience, observance into those areas of our lives. So instead of being super rushed with sending that message, or maybe in the back of our head, we're like, you should probably remind that person to bring that thing because they might forget it. Listen to those inklings. Really listening to those inklings and taking action based off of them can make a huge difference, in my opinion. And I think many astrologers would back me on that. All right, next, in terms of any ways that we can better align with this energy relative also to any sort of blue moon, full moon, supermoon rituals, as always, focusing on the themes that are controlled by the sign that the moon will be in will be most potent. So looking at the themes of Pisces, that being tapping into our emotions, what comes to mind is The Body Keeps the Score, which is a book, and it talks all about how we can often hold our emotions, traumatic experiences, and experiences in general in the body. And it can be through movement, specifically somatic forms of therapy as well. I recommend you looking into that as well. Talk therapy. Many of these things can be very helpful. That's another reason why in yoga, I don't know if you've experienced this or if you notice other people experience, sometimes we might cry in yoga. And oftentimes it's because we're moving our bodies in certain ways that are allowing ourselves to stretch and release certain things that have been stored in the body. So exploring things like that, especially around the time of this blue moon, this Piscean blue moon, can be very powerful. Also, setting intentions for the rest of this lunar cycle, for the rest of the year, or reflecting on things relative to things that we might have held on to emotionally. Also our intuitive abilities, reflecting on our dreams. If we've noticed any insights that have come from that, dream journaling, talk therapy, really articulating, figuring out ways to transmute and really allow ourselves to see fully any of our feelings at this time. I'm a big advocate for us getting outside, especially it's Virgo season. It's all about the plants, baby. It's all about nature. Like mentioned before, blue moons are very unique and auspicious, and one of the biggest characteristics of them is that they can often offer very potent and even stronger clarity around aspects of our lives, more so than any other time of the year. And so if there's anything that you've been wanting to process, even if it's like ideas, like, man, I really want to come up with an idea for something, or figure out like what aligns with me best in terms of, you know, like my schedule or my lifestyle or anything like that, questioning ourselves in that way can be very powerful at this time. That was a lot, but I hope it offered some insight for y'all. All right, with that said, let's go ahead and go into our custom full moon journal prompts. So what I will do is I will go ahead and read out the prompts for you here. You'll see them on the screen, and will also leave them in the video description. If you have your Auralign Astrology Planner, you can go ahead and flip over to the dedicated full moon journal page where you can write this out. And there's also a few other questions that you can write out. What does it look like for you to uphold your standards while holding space for what is? When was the last time you allowed your emotions to flow uninhibited? And by the way, when I say emotions, I don't necessarily mean just negative or sad. They can be happy, joyous, any form of emotions. Is there anything you're seeking clarity around at this time of your life? And finally, at the time of this full moon, is there anything that you're ready to release? These can look like limiting beliefs, habits, places, environment, or people that you feel are no longer aligned with where you'd like to go. All right, y'all, I hope that you enjoyed those writing prompts. And I'm going to go ahead and answer one or two of them to give y'all a little life update on things and to maybe spark some conversation. So a way that I have been working towards, and I intend to also work towards, relative to holding space for my standards and also what is definitely around my wedding. So at the time that you are watching this video, my wedding will not have happened yet, but it's coming up. It's coming up. A huge aspect of planning a wedding, but also like going through a wedding, which I was able to observe through going to weddings over the last few years, is balancing our expectations for how things should play out while accepting how it actually plays out. And as I get closer to the wedding, as Chris and I get closer to the wedding, I've noticed that we obviously have been feeling a lot more stress, which is very natural, even if you're so excited to get married, even if you're the most chill person ever. Just the sheer fact that there are so many moving parts and often so many people and vendors that come into play with organizing something, it can naturally feel a bit overwhelming, especially if you already have a job and you're already doing things. And so with all of that said, something I'm really excited to go into my wedding weekend and wedding day with is really accepting that I already had my Virgo energy, I already had my expectations really put to the forefront with the planning, and now it's time to be present and just let go and let things be how they are. You know what I mean? Because with so many people coming to a wedding and things like that, and like with planning stuff, you know, you can't predict how people will act. You can't predict what time people will show up for things. You can't predict every last thing. All you can do is prepare and create as much structure as you can, and then let that go. And so that's something that I'm really enjoying embodying right now, because really it gives me a lot less stress because I'm not trying to hold on to anything. But with all of that said, I will leave you with my favorite quote, and that is, be gentle with yourself, because life is about the journey, not the destination. All right. Bye. Peace. Toodaloo.